Are your people working hard but not reaching their full potential? The problem is not effort, it is development. At the Modern Observer Group, we transform workforce development into real performance. Our human-centered achievement programs help your team think better, communicate stronger, and execute at a higher level. That means higher employee engagement, stronger leadership, and measurable results across your organization. If you want a workforce that performs, leads, and delivers, it is time to invest in your people. Visit modernobserver.com and discover how the Modern Observer Group helps you build a workforce that wins.
DHS gets funding. Big numbers for Apple and Samsung. GDP and inflation both rise, and more. Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, and here's the news you need to know. President Trump on Thursday signed legislation ending the longest partial government shutdown in U.S. history at 75 days, just hours after the House agreed by voice vote to fund most of the Department of Homeland Security. The bill reopens DHS components, including the TSA, Coast Guard, FEMA, and Secret Service through September 30th. DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin had warned funding would dry up by Friday, putting paychecks at risk for tens of thousands of workers. Funding for ICE and the Border Patrol was left out after Democrats objected and will be handled separately through budget reconciliation, a process Republicans can pass without votes from Democrats. The Senate again rejected a Democratic war powers resolution tied to the U.S. conflict with Iran. The vote was 50-47. Republican Senators Susan Collins and Rand Paul voted in favor. Democratic Senator John Fetterman voted against it. It was the sixth failed Iran war powers vote this year. Senator Adam Schiff sponsored the resolution. Friday marked 60 days since the Trump administration notified Congress that it had carried out strikes on Iran. Under the War Powers Resolution of 1973, a military campaign must end after 60 days unless Congress authorizes force or declares war. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told lawmakers the ceasefire paused the clock. Democrats disputed that position. President Donald Trump signed an executive order Thursday aimed at expanding access to retirement plans for millions of workers whose employers don't offer one. The order directs the Treasury Department to create a new website, trumpira.gov, to help workers find and enroll in private sector individual retirement accounts, or IRAs. Trump said the effort would give workers access to the same types of retirement accounts available to federal employees through the Thrift Savings Plan. For millions of Americans who lack employer-sponsored plans, this will be really revolutionary, Trump said Thursday. The website is set to launch by the start of next year and will allow workers to filter and compare IRAs based on factors such as cost, quality, and investment options. Consumers faced escalating prices in March as the Iran war sent oil soaring and created a new level of challenges for the Federal Reserve, according to a batch of reports Thursday that showed economic growth slower than expected and a generational low in layoffs. The Core Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, which excludes food and energy, accelerated at a seasonally adjusted 0.3% for the month, pushing the 12-month inflation rate to 3.2%, the Commerce Department reported Thursday. The readings matched the Dow Jones consensus estimates. Core inflation hit its highest level since November 23, still far below the inflation levels during the Biden administration. The Commerce Department reported that gross domestic product grew at a 2% seasonally adjusted annualized pace in the first quarter, up from 0.5% in the fourth quarter of 2025, but lower than the 2.2% estimate. The modest growth rate came despite a seeming surge in spending on artificial intelligence and what should have been a boost from the end of last year's government shutdown. Apple's revenue blasted past analysts' expectations. The iPhone maker reported earnings after the closing bell yesterday, and the news was pretty good. Apple services revenue hit a record $30.98 billion during the fiscal second quarter. Additionally, iPhone sales rose 2% to approximately $57 billion. It's still the company's best selling product after nearly 20 years on the market. CEO Tim Cook said it was the company's best March quarter ever, with double-digit growth across every geographic segment. Samsung Electronics reported record quarterly profit after the artificial intelligence boom drove a 49-fold jump in chip income. Samsung has been trying to close the gap with chipmaker SK Hynix in supplying high bandwidth memory chips to NVIDIA. SK Hynix reported record quarterly profit last week after a five-fold jump in earnings. Samsung's results reflect strong demand for AI chips and rising prices tied to supply shortages. That's the Raw Naked Truth for May 1st, 2026. You can catch every episode of the Raw Naked Truth Daily News Brief, as well as our sister podcast, Carnivore Radio, with news analysis and commentary, and the rest of the Xvadio Podcast Network at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech. We'll see you next time.